Hey, hello friends. Thank you for joining me again today. My name's Dan, and this is Daily Art Adventure number 564. Can you believe it? With a mighty clap, he clappeth. I am still finally back out in my cold garage. I have a space heater going right behind me so that I don't have to bundle up quite as much as I would otherwise. And I just got a strange beep. There we go. This is perhaps the first painting of a new era in my career. Maybe, time will tell. And I have just several little things that need to be done to this painting. It's almost a punch list kind of thing. These heads need to be enlarged. This little crosswalk symbol needs to be darkened. The one-way sign needs to be cleaned up just a little bit. This sign needs to be cleaned up quite a bit. And this sign is too prominent. I need to cast a shadow across the right half. I'm not sure if it's going to go at an angle like that or vertical. Or that remains to be seen. And then the whole top of the painting is we're really not down to punch list at the top part of the painting. So that just basically needs to be finished. So let's get right to work and let's pick something that doesn't intimidate me. That's a legal technique, by the way. You don't have to do everything all at once. Sometimes you have the luxury of picking something that's not intimidating you. And trying to decide then what to do. These heads are intimidating me a little bit. Oh, I've got some red paint on here. How about that? Okay, I know what I'm going to do. There's a tiny bit of redrawing that needs to be done on this stoplight. Just a drawing issue. That line needs to come out a little bit further. And maybe a scratch in it. Nope, that didn't work. Let's try something else then. The scratch doesn't work. And there we go. Now, earlier on, one of the items in my punch list is this traffic light configuration up here. I did that last week or maybe 2 weeks ago now, I don't remember. And after I got it all done, I just realized, it's a little bit overdrawn. Not like your bank account, but overdrawn, like drawn too much. That's what I mean. Can I go down? Oh, I can't. Good. I have a little bit of leeway. The painting is just about 7.5 feet tall, and so there's a lot I can't do moving up and down. Okay, so I want to mess up the drawing a little bit, just like it sounds, just like as it sounds. I want to mess up the drawing. So I'm messing up first with some black green, very, very dark. Greenish blacks because it's green already. I am still coming into a realization in my career at the degree to which we can get away with inserting, I'm going to call it meaningless marks into our paintings. Now, I don't literally mean meaningless. They have to be pleasant marks. That's a huge thing. And if you don't know what pleasant marks are, then that's job assignment number one. Begin to discern the difference between pleasant and unpleasant marks. I was looking at one just a few minutes ago. Let me show it to you just for fun. Get it up here where you can see it a little bit better. Way down here at the bottom of the painting, I did this, I think the last time I was working on this painting. This line right here that was made with one of these paint sticks, Shiva artist paint stick. It was made, just, and there's another one here, and there's another one here, big red one that goes like that, and a couple green ones down there, the red one down there. But this is the one in particular. I painted over it right here, but up here and down here, I actually painted around it. I actually accentuated this thing that, in a sense, is meaningless, in the sense that it does not reflect reality. It does not aid in the similitude, the realism of the image. There's not something in the picture. There's no line in the picture that goes like that. If there were, it would be, a scratch on the photographer's lens or something like that. Point being, I'm still kind of amazed at how much, not only does that not bother me, I like it distinctly. I like it a lot. And there's many more subtle ones. Here's another one. Am I in the frame? Yeah, barely. Here's another one right here. It's red. And I painted around it here, painted over it here, smudged it out, but you can still see it. It goes all the way up here. Anyways, that is just one kind of mark, of course, is a big swash like that. But it's a little bit similar to what I just did a minute ago with this dark green. I was listening to a YouTube, young artist on YouTube yesterday for a while. And I forget what his name is. His initials are CK. He's fairly well followed. And he was talking about how he took an entire year off all social media so that he could just sketch. And he's very, well, he was before he took the year off, but he's a very accomplished figurative drawer and painter because he's just worked at it very, very, very hard. And I'll try to remember to look it up later, his name, because it was well worth listening to. A lot of people would be benefited because he describes in his language, of course, not mine, this transition. It's a hurdle. It's a boundary over which most painters, wannabe painters, artists must cross at some point in their career. If they're again, except for the people that decide to make a career of, shall I call it hyper-realism? Extreme realism, I'll just go that, not hyper, just extreme. Except for those people, and many times, I've talked about before, the people that make that decision actually don't make it. They just find themselves unable to cross over. I won't talk about that anymore because it sounds like I'm criticizing people. But this CK, whatever his name was describing in very powerful, poignant terms his journey as he came to learn little by little by little by little that the goal is not photographic reproduction. And again, so my experience of these random marks, and indeed just the random marks that I just put up here, you can barely see them probably on camera, but there's a dark mark right there. I just added there, there, and there, and there, and there, and there, to, in a sense, undraw, if I can use that terminology, this traffic light. And now I'm going to undraw it a little bit more by running a brush handle through some of the marks that I just made. All right, since I'm in this area now, I'm in the mood to tackle this Aspen Avenue sign. Oh, by the way, and this scene is in Flagstaff, Arizona. There's no really good reason why I'm doing a painting from Flagstaff other than that my wife and I were there in December. Our son, his wife, and their baby live in Flagstaff, so it's a good reason for me to be there. But the reason I'm painting it is simply because I liked the photograph, and the photograph is over here on one of my light stands here. And I've been telling you that this is Route 66 is Aspen, but I looked on a map yesterday, and it turns out I'm wrong. Route 66 is 1 block behind us. So this is the famous Monte Vista Hotel in downtown Flagstaff, and Route 66 is 1 block south of Aspen Avenue. Now, just one other detail, just a bit of trivia just for fun. If you've watched Forrest Gump, in one of the scenes where Forrest is running forever across the country, right? One of those scenes, he's running up this road, up this street right here, this San Francisco Avenue. He's going that way, and the camera is there pointing this way. But you can, after we were in Flagstaff, I looked it up, and sure enough, he's running right past this building. So another, just a funny bit of trivia there related to this painting. Has nothing to do with anything, but it's just kind of fun. All right, now I'm mixing up with some liquid. By the way, you all, if you follow me, you know that my favorite speed dryer medium is liquid. But I've been working on this painting now for quite a while, and I need to start becoming aware. I am becoming aware of, like, wait a minute. Am I sure that every layer underneath this one is fast dry? If I am not sure, then I need to switch to a slow dry medium. That makes sense? This relates to I still get questions from people periodically. What about fat over lean? Okay, let me give you a quick, in case you've missed it, let me give you the quick download on fat over lean. Hang on, so I know this end of the sign is going to be in shade. I can start here. Let me give you the quick, my Dan Nelson lecture on fat over lean. First thing I want to say is ignore it. That is an old-fashioned expression that comes from the days of, like, when my dad, who was an excellent painter, that comes from his generation. Why? Because 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, almost all oil painters, this is a slight exaggeration, but almost all oil painters, their medium of choice was linseed oil. Are you with me so far? And linseed oil makes the paint fatter, quote unquote fat. Now, let me not be tricky here. Let me give you the correct translation. Forget fat over lean. Jettison it from your vocabulary. No. It's completely confusing. Now, 60 years ago, it made sense. Today, it does not, because so many people like me use a whole plethora of mediums. Mediums. English majors, get over it. We use a whole plethora of mediums to mix with our oil paints, many of which make the paint dry faster. alkyd, walnut oil, so on and so on and so on and so forth. Galkyd light, and so on and so forth. Okay? The real thing you should have in your mind is slow dry over fast dry, or first layer dries fast, underneath dries fast, on top dries slow. Get rid of fat over lean. This is what they meant, but now it's just confusing because a lot of people think if you add liquid, aren't you making it fat? No, I'm making it leaner, making it dry even faster. So underneath, and this is logical. This is right. You with me? Logic says stuff underneath has to dry before you put stuff on top of it. You don't want the stuff on top drying faster than the stuff underneath. One of these days, I actually have a painting that I did 20 years ago up in my attic. And the only reason I've kept it is because it's so dramatic. Now, hang on just a second. I need to see it. Right now, I'm doing a shadow at an angle like that. I'm going to do it a little bit. I could wipe this off. See, I know I have the luxury of wiping it off if I don't like. Okay, so I have a painting up in my closet that I did 20 years ago when I was not an oil painter. Did I say that strongly enough? When I was not an oil, I've just got an idea here, by the way. Just bear with me. I'm making stuff up as I go, of course, which is the best way to create, which is just you paint with your eyes, always. You always paint with your eyes. You never paint by principle. Good to know the principle, but the final arbiter is your eyeballs. By that I mean the seeing part of your brain, of course. All of a sudden I just realized, this might be a shadow of that sign up there. If I were to do something like have a shaft of light on this sign like that, so instead of just one, I don't know, is that too complicated? It would be cute, and maybe too cute, if people got the impression, am I on the, yeah, okay, you can see me. It would be cute if people connected that sign up there with the shadow. That would be quaint. The angle's a little steep. And of course, we're just making this up completely. There's no indication of this in the photograph whatsoever. You know, I think I kind of like that, though. I do think I like the slightly lighter mark over here. Okay, painting in my attic. I did 20 years ago when I was not an oil painter. Here's what happened 20 years ago. I did a painting. It was actually for an illustration for an ad agency, and they used it. It worked fine. You know, it didn't start showing signs of duress until well after it was, like within months after it was finished. So the ad agency used it. They loved it just fine. It did its job. But as I was doing it, it was like, oh, this is drying too slow. My oil painting is drying too slowly. So I went to my local art store, which at the time was Ask You Taylor. Yay, we love us some Ask You Taylor, us old Raleigh artists. And I bought a bottle of this stuff right here, fast dry liquid. So get this is what I did. I've got an oil painting that's drying too slowly. So my logic is, hey, if I brush some of this on top of that, it'll make it dry fast. Well, and I'll show it to you someday. When we talk about, bad things like the paint will crack, don't be thinking that it's going to have like these nice little hairline cracks like you see in a Rembrandt or Franz Hals painting or something. Oh, no. This thing started cracking, a month or two after I did that. And it cracked on for a good 10 years. Listen, the cracks in that thing are 1/4 of an inch wide. I mean, it's like a bunch of oil painting potato chips stuck on the canvas with gaps 1/4 inch wide. So, is it serious? Does it matter? Oh, yes. So that was a great learning experience for me. It's like, oh my goodness. They really mean what they say when they say, fat over lean. When they say slow dry underneath, No, slow dry on top, fast dry underneath. You know what I'm trying to say. So it's not like a subtle thing that only you artists are so fussy. Oh, no, 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 no. Quarter-inch cracks. You know what I should do? It just dawned on me. I should bust that thing out and turn it into an abstract painting using, I feel like 20 years later, I feel like it's probably reached a state of equilibrium. But it would be great fun to do something to it, wouldn't it? Cut out parts of it and so forth. Okay, so I've just darkened, as you can see, part of that sign. The sign was jumping off way too strongly. So now let's get in here and finish I've also messed with the lettering in this sign several times. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Is a couple times? No, several. So I'm going to mess again, and I'm going to get a step stool. There we go. I don't think that's the right color. I'm trying to match. This is what we do a lot of in the final edit layer. We spend a lot of time mixing up colors to match what's already there. So right now, I'm trying to match what I just put down. This part of the sign. Good. See, that's pretty close. Trying to match in an opaque paint. What I'm mixing on my brushes is opaque, right? I'm trying to emulate or imitate or match what is already there, and you do a lot of the final edit in that manner. And as you can see, I'm trying to clean up the letters, but I'm trying to do it without getting overly fastidious. I don't want to get too clean. It will look stultified. There's a good word. It'll look stiff. It'll look tight. It'll look over-controlled. So one of many ways you can overcome something like that is what I'm doing right now, which is paint it first in a fairly careful manner and then intentionally mess it up. So those mess up lines are very subtle. I can see them. You might not be able to, but it's just enough of a chaos to keep it interesting. I talked a while ago, last week, I think, when I'm trying to describe the new era in my painting, which is still an experiment. I don't really know that I've entered a new era. I just feel like I have. I think I probably have, but time will tell. If I don't sell any paintings in this new era, then I'll be dashing back to the old era, you may be sure. Because we do have to eat around here. One of the descriptors of my new era is that I'm going to take more time with paintings. Take time to get them right. The danger there is, and what non-artists would assume, is that more time equals tighter, right? I think especially beginner painters would assume that if I'm spending more time on paintings, then they must be, in fact, getting tighter and tighter. And I'm trying to take pains to make sure that does not happen, because that is not what I want. I don't want tighter paintings. So how can more time not translate into tighter? And the answer is, some of the time that I'm working on the painting is going to be spent, in fact, not replicating the image, but in fact making messes, like those last two strokes that I just put on. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to leave the shadow part now, I think, for a moment, and now do the sunlit parts of this sign. You always, now, this is not a Dan Nelsonism. This is not unique to me. This is, what I'm about to say is standard, old-timey, traditional art painting professorism. Okay, it is. Darks first, lights last. Now, what does that mean? In my opinion, this might be a Dan Nelson, in my opinion, that phrase, darks first, lights last, what most professors mean is you start a painting by doing the dark stuff, finish by doing the light stuff. And that is correct. But it's almost even more specific than that. Here's one application of that principle, is every time you put a dark mark anywhere on your painting, anywhere on your canvas, every time you put a dark mark, by the way, see how I'm holding my brush right now? That's probably the first time I've held my brush in that manner in this entire canvas. Okay, so what was I talking about? Darks first, lights last. Yes, it means every time you put a dark mark on your canvas, it means that your painting is not finished. I mean, that little bit of your painting is not finished. Because every time you make a dark mark, you must follow through with light marks. If you can let that sink in and really believe me, first of all, and then do it, your paintings will have a distinct leg up, if I can use that expression, a distinct advantage over those who do not know that rule. Every time you make a dark mark anywhere on your canvas, on your painting, that little area of your painting is not finished. You must follow up with a light mark. Now, again, the name of my book, I'm still calling it a book, even though it might be a rule, can be broken, including, of course, the one that I just gave you. But if you don't know the rule and you're breaking it, you're probably just screwing up. So you have to know the rule. The rule is darks first, lights last. Then once you know that, you will discover on rare occasion when that rule should be violated. But you just don't go violating it willy-nilly, thinking you're getting away with it. You're not. There you go. That's the way it is with all the rules. They all can be broken. And that's what forgive me, that's what some goofy people mean when they say, there aren't any rules to painting. You give me any rule and I'll show you a painting that breaks it. No. Yeah, I know it. What you're really saying is there are exceptions to every rule, which not only do I readily admit, I have written a book on the subject, The Breakable Laws of Painting. But you got to know what the laws are first, or you're probably just screwing up. And trust me, there's a lot of there's a lot of screwing up going on. That sounds kind of mean, doesn't it? Okay, let me stand back now and look at this sign and see if I like that. I do. Sorry, that's my guy. I got kids playing basketball outside the garage door. I'm wondering about that. I'm going to leave it for now. I am wondering if that might be a little bit too busy. Is it better if it just is gray all the way up to there? It might be me trying to do too much. All right. Once again, since I'm in this area of the painting, I'll continue. This sign, ouch. I'm looking at the photograph, and it's a neon sign. I think there's an arrow pointing to the right, but I can't really tell. It's white letters on a red background. I'm telling you all of that to say this. I don't need to do any of that. I don't need to have a red sign. It doesn't need to be neon, etc. But how to say this? We artists, we are not beholden to copy anything in the photograph. Let that sink in, right? A hearty amen from all of you. We don't have to do anything that the photograph tells us to do. Check, check. I'm sure that I'll get no argument there, except from, again, from you realists, you extreme realists who have not crossed the Rubicon yet. It's a reference to Caesar. How did Caesar get in this paint lesson? Anyway, some of you are not ready for that level in your, the first half of career is learning how to paint stuff. Second half, mature part of your career, is learning how to paint paintings. There you go. All right, but we are not beholden, of course. I don't know if you can see, probably, no, I'll tell you what, I'll pick this up just for a minute so you can see the photograph yourself. Am I pointing the right way? Yeah, pretty much. Do you see the red sign right here? See that? Okay, that's what I'm looking at. So let me start my sentence again. You all know, of course, without any provocation on my part, we do not need to copy anything. We're not beholden to reproduce any part. And I'm probably speaking a little bit here to student painters. Last weekend, no, it's 10 days ago weekend, I had the privilege of judging 2 different shows on back-to-back days, Saturday and Sunday. Between Saturday and Sunday, I looked at over 550 paintings. So that's one of the things those experiences give me a sense of where, sorry for the grammar, but where people are at. That judging of shows makes me nod my head or shake my head, as the case may be, and go, oh, I see, this is what people are. Of course, there's a wide range, you understand that. But one of the things, I'm about to address one of the areas that they struggle with. Okay. We are not beholden to copy or include anything that's in the photograph. In fact, we don't have to do a photograph, right? Okay, but, let's get to the big but. But, here's what you may not do, in my humble opinion. You may not look at a photograph and say, well, I'm going to do this scene, but I'm not going to do that. That's too hard. And don't tell me that we don't do that. No, you do not decide to eliminate things because it's too hard. I mean, I'm being a little bit harsh, aren't I? If you want to be a good painter, if you want to be a better painter, bring yourself to the point. Figure out some way to include that thing, even though it's hard. But that kind of thing does go on not terribly infrequently. I'm not going to do that part. In other words, your decision about what to excise out of the photograph is based on aesthetics, not on what you're going to eliminate because you're not up to the job. That's kind of mean. I know. I'm being mean to some of you right now. I do feel kind of bad about that, but not bad enough to not say it again. You're not beholden to copy the photograph. You can cut out anything you want, but the decision what to cut out is an aesthetic decision, not a, oh dang, that's too hard decision. Okay, so I do not need to include this red sign. And let me continue just for a moment. What is the proper role of a photograph, or for that matter, any reference whatsoever? For the last 15 years, the great majority of my painting has been done on plein air. Easel on street, painting street. So this pertains to just paint out of your head. One of the ways to explain that is, well, I usually jokingly say, if you paint out of your head shrinks. Out of head, out of head, out of head, out, brain. I'm being facetious, of course, but it's a graphic, analogous language of a literal truth. So what is the proper role of the stuff that you're looking at? I have an answer. It might not be a good one, but I have an answer for that. And it is that the reference, be that photograph or plein air, it sparks things in you that you would not have come up with if you didn't have a reference. Why am I doing a red sign here? Is the answer because it's there? Well, yes and no. No, I'm not. I don't have to do it because it's there. But if it weren't in the photograph, I almost certainly wouldn't be doing it. So in fact, part of what adds an air of believability to a painting is things happen in it that you wouldn't have thought of out of your head, probably. So the proper role of reference is makes your painting better because it makes you think of things you wouldn't have thought of if it wasn't, in this case, in the photograph. Now, everything that I just did is nice. I'm telling you. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Now, I'm about to make a point. Everything that I just did on that sign is, let me stand back now, is quite nice. I think I've rendered, you know, in fact, so much so that the locals, people who live in Flagstaff and are familiar with the street, they would recognize that sign. It's plenty close enough to reality. However, I think it's probably a little, yeah, it's coming forward a little too much. Now there's a couple things I can do about that. One is I'm going to do right now, but the other thing is I can wait till tomorrow when that's dry, then I can do a glaze over it, which would push it back. That's definitely an option, which also helps answer the question, well, how can you spend more time on a painting and it not just get tighter and tighter and tighter? Well, that's one example. If I wait till tomorrow, more time, and I do a glaze over that, I have untightened, I have detightened, I have pushed back, I've made the painting slightly more abstract, not more realistic. Does that make sense? So there again is another example of how can you spend more and more and more time on a painting and it not just get more and more and more realistic. That's because many of the things you're spending time doing are not in a realistic direction, but are in fact in an abstract direction. Okay, but before that, besides waiting till tomorrow, and I do advocate this trick, I employ it not infrequently. Now, I don't think so. Yeah, that's not going to have any effect, the brush handle. But here's the principle. I've talked about this before, especially when it comes to, like down here, when it comes to doing figures in a painting, or even more so, this guy over here walking across the street, which I am quite happy with him. Sometimes you have to paint, at least in my opinion, if you're as bad an artist as I am, I should say, sometimes you have to paint in a overly fastidious, like that word, in an overly tight manner in order to get it right, but you're not done yet. So here's what I am going to do. So some of this is wet, and I've got a finger in 2 layers of cotton fabric, and I'm going to, forgive me, I know I keep interrupting myself. Let me tell you, first show you what I'm not going to do, because this is what some of you might do. So I'm not going to touch the canvas, I'm going to act out. Here's what you do. First of all, the proverbial stick out your tongue, and you'd start going like that, or you'd go like this. Okay, that kind of motion right there, that's what I call an ergonomic stroke. When an artist makes a mark like that, an artist should never make a movement like that. Frankly, that's a rule that is almost never broken. Never go like this. Why? Because you're doing, why am I doing this with my hand? Is it because of overriding conscious aesthetic decisions? It is not. It is because of the way my hand is made, my wrist, muscles, tendons, that's a very natural movement for my hand to make. That's why I'm doing it, because it's natural. Don't do things because they're natural. Do things because they're aesthetically judged by your critical mind, by your eye, to be, so you make the kind of marks that are attractive, not easy. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do then. I'm going to change my, I'm going to do 2 fingers. Ah! Okay, I don't like the crackle that I just heard when I pushed down on that. I just pushed down on that canvas. I pushed down a little too hard. And the other thing is my canvas is coming toward me. Forgive me just a minute. I'm going to go down here and make an adjustment. There we go. I can lean it back just a little bit. All right. Let me see if that had the effect that I really want. Yeah, it's better. It is better. I diminished the tightness of a little bit, but I'm going to diminish the tightness of it even a little bit more. So I am, once again, happens so many times in the process of painting, I'm mixing up a dark transparent. You get dark with transparent color, light with opaque color. Likewise, that rule is rarely broken. Can be broken, but if you think, oh, I'm the exception to that rule, no, you're just painting poorly. Now, not everybody knows that rule. I've said this often. There are some really, really, really good famous painters out there. I will leave them unnamed for the moment. Sometimes I name them. Who are better than I am, famouser than I am, butcher the language, famouser than I am, richer than I am by their artwork, blah, 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 blah. And they do not paint in transparent colors. And so who are you, Mr. Big Shot Nelson, that you are so arrogant that you rail against people that are better than you are? You know, first, okay. And I do rail. And if they understood the magic of transparency, they would, okay, so they're better than I am, but they would be better than they are if they understood. So here I am, again, messing up this sign. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. They may be better than I am, but they would be better than they are if they did the magic of transparency. And again, now let me, you think I'm being arrogant now, put on your seatbelt. David Mercer, don't listen. Who paints like me? Not many people in my generation. Most people in my generation paint straight out of the tube, opaque. Most, not all by any means. I'm not unique, but we are the minority. Especially among plein air painters. Plein air, it's just about a complete hegemony of opaque painters in the current crop of plein air painters. So if you want to feel a little bit sorry for me because I'm outnumbered, do that, but don't feel too sorry because I'm about to say, so who paints like me? The answer is virtually every great painter that you know before 1890. So this painting opaque is a fairly recent development in the history of painting. And that's why the paintings of the old masters have this elusive glow about them that so many of our modern masters miss, is because the old masters were painting in transparent layers. Anyway, that's maybe enough of that for right now. Oh, by the way, so the last thing I did up here, the last 2 things. One is I rubbed out with fingers on a rag. Then I came back and did dark, and it is much better. It's sitting back now a little bit. But do you remember what I said just a little while ago? What is on my brushes right now? Is it dark or light? Dark, that's right. That means what? That's right, that this part of my painting is not finished. Bingo, good job, you're listening. That paint, I just put dark paint on. Now this rule can be broken, but this is not a time to do it, because I'm just about to come back and make this little sign, this little part of the painting, which is a red sign with neon letters on it. I'm about to make this part of the painting slightly better than it is. And it is by following up any dark marks with lighter marks. I'm trying to mix up just the right color of very dull pink. Man, I'm not even sure what color to call it. Very, very dirty pink, but slightly lighter than what's here already. And I'm being quite careful to make marks that cannot be, that are not in perfect alignment with what's already there, so that I'm not adding to the feeling of tightness. That's the best way to put it. So I don't want to add to the illusion that this is a tight, As soon as I say that, I go, one too many marks. There we go. All right, does that make sense? I have a little bit more of that to do. Now I'm doing the letters, so to speak, right now. I'm doing the letter parts of this sign, which is the white neon against a dark red background. There we go. Now, before I leave, though, I'm going to do, again, slightly lighter than what's already there, mixing up an opaque version that is slightly lighter than what's already there. That's, you do a lot of that in the final edit layer. You mix up opaque colors that are slightly lighter than what's already there in the underpainting. Another principle, just for what it's worth, very, very, very rarely in painting do you want a static or flat planes. There's lots of planes. Let me back out just for a second. David says the corner street light are fairly wider at the base. You're talking about this? Let me look at the, oh. Are you talking about the pole, David? You might be right. One of the ironies is, in this case, in the photograph, the people are right in front of that base. Anyway, but I'm not, or maybe you're talking up here. Anyway, okay, back to, there are a lot of flat planes in this scene, because mostly the signs. There's a lot of signs. Sign, 1, 2, 3, 4. This whole thing is a plane. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just for, and the wheel here, 11. So at least, not counting the building that is at an oblique angle, so we don't really see that. I don't know if I counted this or not, maybe. Anyway, lots of flat planes, right? 12, the face of that. And that are facing us, planes that are facing us. And in painting, you virtually never want a plane that is in fact flat. You want it going from dark to light, light to dark. Now, I already talked about this in this painting quite a bit. That's why all of them most of them go from light to dark, light to dark, light to dark, light, dark. And again, I'm still having doubts about that. This one, the one I just finished, goes from light to dark. This one, light to dark. Do you see the point? The wheel cover here, light to dark. You do not want to leave your planes flat. Now, at the moment, the whole wall of this building is okay. No, it's okay. It's dark. It goes dark to light. I want to make sure I maintain that. So I'll probably bring this forward just a little bit and so on. And this sign, the Vista, Monte Vista sign, it goes again. You can't see the top of it, can you? Dark to light. Okay, just a really important tip to keep in mind. David says, yes, the pole is... You know what? I think you're probably right. David, stop it. I'm kidding. By the way, David, I finished my illustration, my farmer illustration, this morning. And yes, his head was too big. I hate to admit it. His head was too big. And I caught it, fixed it in Photoshop. Looks lovely. Hang on just a second. For some reason, I'm not getting a monitor here, and that makes me nervous. There we go. Is it working now? All right. Thank you. It was probably, everything was probably okay from your end, but when I can't hear my monitor, it makes me nervous because I don't know if we're actually broadcasting sound or not. I did not all poles get wider at the bottom. You have to think about that one, David. I agree. Most do. I'm gonna look at this again. I'm still not sure about that. Yeah, now I'm sure about it. No, it is bothering me. I don't. It was a nice idea. For those of you who are just joining me in the last few minutes, the Aspen street sign up there. I experimented. I just added the shadow on it today, and then while I was doing that, I said, "Well, I wonder if it would look cool." You know, it was one of those "I wonder if." And I've just decided that no, I don't like it. So I rarely, by the way, erase. And I don't. If you take one of my classes, you know I'm railing against the notion of erasing all the time, mostly because when a student erases, as I like to say, the spirit of eraser comes on them, comes all over them. The spirit of eraser is, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm such a bad artist, I can't do it. You with me? That's the spirit of eraser. So once you get mature enough that you can resist the spirit of erasure, then you may erase, but rarely do I do it. The reason I did it right there is because it was wet paint and it was wet white paint and I wanted to just go ahead and do a quick glaze. Is that the right word? Yeah, a quick glaze on top of it. Yes, that was a glaze. Okay, so now let me stand back once again and look at the sign and see if I like it better. Yes, I do. All right. So the idea is this end of this. These are subtle. This is quite blatant that it goes from, the light is just hitting. In fact, now that I've done that, I realize I can actually punch up the light, which is always fun. Man, any excuse in the world to punch up light. Can I use that terminology with you? Yeah, that's almost exactly the color that's already there, which is nice, which means I hit the target exactly, but now I want to make it slightly lighter than what's there. And again, if you know the way that I'm painting, how can you spend just more and more and more time on a painting and it not just get more and more realistic? The answer is because not all the strokes that I'm making are realism. Like right now, I am not coming in and sticking up my tongue and coloring in the lines, right? There's all kinds of interesting texture in that white area. In fact, almost too interesting. So I'm going to, again, mix up even a slightly lighter color, perhaps the lightest now. And now that I've got that much light on that sign, it behooves me to do that again. I'm going to make it fuzz out. Now, last week I was teaching, and I modeled this. I modeled several things like this several times, and then, you know, when I watch students interpret my language, I learn. It's like, oh, so I was very adamant about them that when they make these kinds of marks, when you make these kinds of marks, you must make them with speed, strength, vigor, not wimpy motions. Let me say, this is one of the best sayings I've come up with in the last couple of months. You cannot make beautiful marks with ugly movements. Attractive movements create attractive marks. All right, so They saw me do it, but then I found my students doing, certainly they were doing quick, but then they did really short, like, whoop. And no, I didn't correct them. They were, you can't overcorrect your students. Does that make sense? They'll just lose heart. No, not little movement, big movement like this. Okay, my hand started here. Didn't get off I'm out of the picture almost, aren't I? Didn't stop moving until I got up there. That's a pleasant movement. Not a little short, choppy chop. Let me repeat that. You cannot make beautiful marks with ugly movements. Beautiful marks are the product, the result, the afterglow of good movements. Now that I've done that, I want to come up with a palette knife. Oh my wife's calling me. I'm gonna have to take a quick break here in a minute and call her back. But I would like to find my palette. Here it is. Okay, let me do a quick. Now that I've got that degree of light coming off this sign, good idea then to come back and really flatten some color there, some paint there, to create a real intense glow. Yeah, I like that. Now I'm going to come back and do a little bit of that red. And I'm out of red paint. Bear with me just a moment. I have several reds on my palette. What I really mean is I'm out of Scarlet Lake. My favorite reds are three. I have three favorite reds. Permanent Rose, Naphthol Crimson, and Scarlet Lake. I do not use Cad Red, don't need it. Again, those three. Permanent Rose is my cool red. Naphthol Crimson, I mean, not Naphthol Crimson Light, Naphthol Crimson Dark or Deep, and Scarlet Lake. Those are my three reds. I feel like I can do anything I want in the red realm with those three. I'm not restricted in the least and do not need any Cad Red. And so if I don't need it, heck, why use it? Just, they say it's not toxic, and other people in California say it is toxic. That's a joke, but California, never mind. It's not, I didn't mean it's a funny joke, it's just a joke. All right, that's kind of nice. That is kind of nice. I'm actually painting with some pink paint, which is very unusual for me. But when it's appropriate, it's appropriate. There we go. Since we're looking at that sign rather up close, let me reiterate something. The most important aspect of a painting is play of light. I now, after 15 years of that mantra, and responding to other artists, listening to other artists talk about my paintings and so on, I think I can say that with some confidence that, yep, that is what I do. That one of the chief characteristics of a Dan Nelson painting is play of light. And play of light does not mean, you ready for this, students? Play of light does not mean which way is the light coming from. That is not play of light. You don't get any credit for getting that right. You just get kicked out of the game for getting it wrong. I'm being a little bit mean, but honest. You don't get any points for getting that answer correct. But you do get kicked out of the game for getting it wrong. Play of light is words that are much more violent than the light is hitting, even though the word hitting is a fairly violent word, but it's so ubiquitous, we hear it so often that it's lost its punch. If you play of light is are things reflected by language like light is exploding, light is glancing, light is ricocheting, slicing, glistering and blistering, sparkling, exploding, maybe my favorite. So if I want that Aspen Street sign, I want it to look like the sun is exploding off just the end of it, right? And that word, then when I tell you, oh, that's what you're aiming for, and then you can say, oh yeah, well you pretty much that's what it looks like. And if you want light, sunlight in particular, if you want sunlight to look like it's really exploding off an object, then that object must, I hope you're listening, must have very soft edges. The soft glow is what gives it the impression that it's glowing, that the light is exploding. Fairly recently, just in the last couple of months or so, I've come up with another term to help me explain what I'm after, what I think you should be after. We, or the viewer, that is the viewer of our paintings, doesn't care what the light is on, doesn't care what the light is hitting. What the viewer cares about is what the light is off. I'm being kind of cute with my language to make it memorable. We don't care what the light is on, we care what the light is off. So this street sign, again, I think a good example of that. You don't care that the light is, so to speak, you don't care that the light is hitting this sign, that the light is on this sign. What makes it exciting is the light that is off the sign, glowing on the atmosphere, the air around it. That's what makes it exciting. If you just keep the light on the sign, it's boring. And you see that everywhere in my painting. You don't care that these headlights and taillights are on. Let's go down to this close one. You care, what makes it exciting is what they're off. In other words, what the red light is bouncing off atmosphere, bumper, wheel, character. It's all the ricochet is what makes it interesting, not the simple fact that the light is shining, that the light is even on. It's what the light is also on. What the light is off is how I usually put it. All right. I'm happier with some of what's going on up there. I've darkened this. I need to play with this sign just a little bit. No, before I leave, I did a little tiny bit with that stoplight up here. And again, for this, I am paying attention to my photograph. The question is, how much of a darkened stoplight, in this case, is reddish, even when the light is off? And the answer is, according to the photograph I'm looking at, yeah, a noticeable amount. You can definitely tell that that's a red light, even though it's hidden in shadow. So, and then same thing with the yellow light underneath it. So I want to give just a hint. You know, why not? I want to say, why would you not want to add a little bit of color to your painting whenever you have license to do so? That's nice. That turned out really well right there. Good, Matt's art stuff. Good question. Good observation. Yeah, I lost their shadow. Thank you. They had one, and then it got disappeared. Now, in my defense, partly, is their shadow got tangled up with the shadow of the curb. But still, that's a great observation. Man, you guys are really helping me here. I don't want to say some smart aleck thing like "shut up." No, I'm kidding. You really are helping. You just make me look bad. I'm kidding about that. Hey, that's wonderful. Thank you. Now, okay, that means I'm not done in this part of the painting, right? I'm about to put some dark stuff down here. This is a good example again of this principle. Anytime you do dark stuff, then you are behoven to follow through with light stuff. But you know what? I am really... Oh yeah, okay, the shadow it goes back at an angle. I had to really think about that for a minute. There we go. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Okay, so the principle is anytime you put dark down, you follow up with light, right? Anytime. Repeat after me. Anytime you put dark on any part of your canvas, then that part of your canvas is not finished. Of course, every rule can be broken, but very often what passes as breaking rules is simply sloth, laziness. I'm too tired, I don't want to do it again. Okay, and that's not an excused absence, so to speak. Now, oh, that's a little bit too bright. I'm going to play dangerous with it a little bit. Where do you put the light? And the answer is usually, the most common answer is adjacent to, abutting, right up against the dark mark that you just made. Okay, so there is an answer to that question. Where do you put these light marks? The answer is most often adjacent to, abutting, right next to the light marks you just made. There's a lot of, again, in the final edit painting, and I've been aware of this, teaching this for decades now, that in the final edit layer, there is a lot of edge painting. You don't do a lot of painting in the open areas, but you paint along the edges of things. Right now, for instance, I'm painting along the edge. Am I zoomed in? Let me zoom a little better so you can see what I'm doing. Right now I'm painting along the edge of this concrete. You see there's a dividing line in the sidewalk, like all sidewalks, right? A crack in the sidewalk. So I'm painting, I'm abutting, I'm painting up next to, and the color I have on my brushes is too light, too bright. So let me take a second to mix something darker. Matt, I sure like to think I would have caught that. Just like David last night, I thought I would have caught that farmer's head too big. I really did. It was working on me subconsciously, so when you said it, it really sproinged out at me. I'll post. I don't think I posted that yet on my YouTube community page. Again, for any of you who are regulars or irregulars for that matter, you know, on a YouTube page, if you click on Dan Nelson, you go to my channel. Once you're on my channel, my picture's at the top, and then it has home, home videos, playlist, maybe something, community. And the word community, if you click on that, you will see still image, finished images of finished paintings. So especially if it's a painting that I've spent quite a bit of time, like the illustration I did finished last night, if I've spent a significant amount of time broadcasting about it, then I try to be careful to make sure I include it there. For those of you who are, you know, have followed me, you will probably then find it interesting to see, well, I wonder how that ended up, you know. Just a little while ago, I believe I posted my event painting from last Thursday evening, where I was painting at a middle school. I want just to break up this shadow just a little bit, like a hint of an arm or something. All right, thank you, Matt. Good word. That really breaks up that area nicely too. Thank you very much. Now that I'm sitting down here with this color on my brushes, but yep, that was nice. A little bit of visual chaos. All right, once again, now that since I'm sitting down here, you drove me to it, Matt. I want to come down here and do some lighter bits, even lighter yet, on the sidewalk here at the base of this wall. I don't like that color. It needs to be warmer. And I have run out of Naples yellow. That's right, I still have yellow ochre. That will do. Oops, that might be too bright there. And you remember, what I'm doing right now is almost scumbling. You know, if it goes over the line into scumbling, what is scumbling? It's painting with very thin layers of opaque paint, with sort of dry brush is another term. That's what a watercolorist, I think, would call it, dry brushing. And scumbling is a great technique for achieving the color and value that you want, but it doesn't leave, generally speaking, it does not leave a pleasant texture on your canvas. And that is just, I've never heard anybody else teach that. Many of the things I teach are direct observation. Once you see it, though, you can't unsee it. Scumbling is not not a terribly pleasant texture. So you use scumbling to achieve the color and the value that you want, but then you follow up with what I'll call real painting. And in this case, what I mean by that is paint on brush, paint applied to canvas, not dithering away, applied with integrity and gusto. Real paint, so you can see the strokes, so to speak. People like to see, that's too light, sorry. People like to see paint strokes. In fact, they like to see, even more than paint strokes, they like to see paint piles. They like to see a certain degree of thickness of paint. Not in the under layers, for me, but in the very final layer, they really do like seeing, to some degree, a thickness of paint. Okay. And everything I'm doing right now is not quite thick enough, but I'm just trying to achieve the color that I want. Am I zoomed in? Yeah, okay. Now, see this crazy mark that I just made? Very typical of me, but it's a little bit too much of a good thing. So I'm not erasing now. I am lifting off with a rag because I'm going to carefully leave some of that mark showing. That's done. And it looks better, the painting looks better with some of that mark showing. So I'm glad I made it, but it was just a little bit too much of a good thing. Easy, easy fix. A lot of these wild and crazy marks and movements that I make, you know, when I let my brush kind of go crazy, that can be said of a lot of them. That is, make the mark, and if it's a little bit too much of a good thing, as I just said, then it's very easily rectified. Just rub off part of it with a rag or with the handle of your brush. If it's thicker paint, you know, the handle of your brush will make a nice mark. So the lesson, if you will, there is, so don't be timid. Once I added a shadow to these people, it greatly accentuated the exact angle of the sun, and then I realized I needed to replicate that angle on this building, so it kind of threw me into a whole new project down here. But I'm liking it. I am glad I went heading in this direction. Hey, sweetie. Glad you are. Thank you. I hope I get a chance before I quit today. I want to talk about painting thin lines in a painting. Last week when I was teaching, I had an epiphany, a moment of awakening and revelation that could help many of you paint better. I'll start the discussion right now. Many, I'll say student, I don't know what to call people who are, you know what I mean? Do we call them beginners, wannabes, students? So usually I say students. Many student painters, if they want to make a thin line, a narrow, skinny line on their canvas, they simply pick up a smaller brush, especially a smaller, you know, synthetic, fake sable, soft brush, a skinny and then skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. I cannot possibly tell you how utterly misguided that is. So I'll tell you later about what to do instead of that. But just make a mental note for the meantime that impulse is completely misguided. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even almost the right thing to do. Whew, did I scare you? Good. It's for your own good, boys and girls. I'll continue a little bit. One of the answers is get rid of those soft sable, fake sable synthetic brushes. Now, I don't really mean get rid of them. Just stop painting in oils. Save them for your watercolors. Now, a little bit of my own personal journey in that regard. I was an illustrator for many years, as you may know, and watercolor was one of my main mediums. In college, I was essentially a watercolor major. So I was familiar and comfortable with soft sable brushes. So 20 years ago, when I first started dabbling in oil painting, I made a direct transition to painting in oils with soft sable. You know what I mean, right? Synthetic, not real sable. I mean, sure, a few of those, but mostly the synthetic stuff. And the reason I was particularly partial toward the soft sable brushes is the same reason that many of my students are to this day. The reason is because the soft brushes behave. They do what they're told. They do what you want them to do. When you put the brush down on the canvas, especially if it's a nice new sable brush with a nice sharp point, you know the mark that that brush is going to make, and it behaves itself. It does what you tell it to do. And if you're like most painters, you feel like if you're in control, you're a better painter. Now, I hope that by watching me, you're being released of that error. You should be seeing from the way that I paint, the way that I move, that being in control, quote unquote, is not the height of value. On the value scale, being in control is very low and when you're a painter. No. All right. So how to make skinny lines. I'm not going to do it right now, but I'll have a reason to do so. I like that. That is much better than it was. Yahoo! All right. Logic would say that the figures here would make a logical, good, sensible next step. Let me just raise up a little bit. So I like them quite a bit, but their heads are just a little bit too small. I talk about this quite a bit. When I'm doing figures in a painting, almost always I'm doing symbols of human beings. I'm not trying to indicate particular people or particular kinds or shape of people. Of course, I am very aware of racial inclusivity and so forth. People sometimes say, are all your people skinny? Why are all your people thin? And the answer is because if you make them realistic, chubby, that's realistic Americans are chubby. If you make them chubby, it will give the impression that you're trying to indicate particular people. Oh, who is that? Or a particular kind of person. If you make them, again, in America, realistic, which means chubby, it will be like, oh, is that supposed to be an old person? Is that a grandmother? Is that a grandfather? And so on. And most of the time, that is not my desire. I do not want to give the impression that I'm drawing particular people. They're simply almost icons, symbols for human beings. The very same way that mannequins in the store window are symbols. They're not, when you go by a clothing store in the mall, women's clothing store in particular, I don't know, yeah, I guess there are male mannequins, but, right? I mean, it's almost, 10 to 1, 9 to 1, 5 to 1. Female mannequins over male. There's a philosophical and very justifiable reason for that as well. It's not a sexist issue, it's a humankind issue anyway. When you go by the mannequins, they are all size, I'm not an expert on sizes, but I'm guessing they're size 0 or size 1, right? And that they are not saying by that, you should be a size 0 or a size 1 to buy dresses in here. They're just saying, we sell dresses, they look like this, come and try one on. They want you to ignore the mannequin. And in a sense, that's what I'm doing here. I don't want you to get to feel like I'm making some kind of political or sociological comment about the kind of people that would be standing on the street corner on a cold December day in Flagstaff. I do not. Does that make sense? I just want them to look like, oh yeah, people, just almost like mannequins. They just represent humanity. So that's why I make them skinny. If you make them chubby, which is realistic for most of us in America, make them chubby, then it looks like, who's that supposed to be? You with me? So, and I see this, again, a lot in student paintings. You want to do a painting of people at the beach. And when you go to the beach, half the people there are chubby. So if you want your painting to be realistic, you paint half the people chubby. And it doesn't quite work. It does not quite work. Unless you're trying to indicate, no, this is a grandmother playing with her grandchild, then yes, you can make that one chubby. Do you understand? If you're trying to make some kind of point, if you're making a point, go for it. Go for it. But if you're not making a point, then paint mannequins, not particular individuals. Okay, so the whole time I'm talking there, I've just been scratching away. There we go. I like that. I don't know if you can see this. I think you might be able to see it. Do you see this scratch that I just made with that brush handle? A little bit too much of a good thing. That doesn't mean I get mad and wipe it out, but I can push it back a little bit, real easy. But if you don't make marks like that, like with a brush handle, then you're going to end up with entirely too staid of a painting. So make the mess, make the wild mark, understanding that most of the time you can rectify it quite easily, as I did right there. I could still see that mark barely, but now it's pushed back where I like it. I'm going to leave the couple just the way they are for the moment. Well, one minor change. I'm going to add just a little bit of brighter red to the man's the sunward side of his shoulder. So I'm mixing up pink and adding yellow to it. So it's a very pale, peachy color. I think that might be the right color. And again, a little bit more tension up here by his face, by their faces. Not crazy about that mark. As I like to say, witness my distress. In other words, I am not distressed. I'm not worried about it because I'm not done. Painting's not done until it's done. Until it's done, it's not done. So you can relax. You still have, ooh, you know what? I think I'm going to change the angle of his shoulder a little bit. Ooh, I like that a little bit. A bit too much glow. Again, witness my distress, right? None. No. I'm still painting. I'm still messing with it. Now, I'm going to try to break a rule right here. I don't know if I can get away with it or not. Darks first, lights last. Right now, I mixed up a color that is slightly darker than what I just put on, which means it's a violation of the rule. Darks first, lights last. Right now, I did light red. Now I'm doing dark red on top of it. I might be able to get away with it because I'm mixing it with the earlier mark, but I might not. My eye will tell me if I can get away with it or not. And I don't know yet. Ooh, you know what? Okay, generally speaking, there's something good happening here. Everything I'm doing right now on this man's coat might be too much, but there is something good happening. With the shadow of the woman and the shadow of his head. Again, play of light, play of light, play of light. So now I've got a clear indication of light happening on him. My biggest hesitation is I should have started with something darker than this, lighter than this, darker than this, and then built up to this. So I'm not sure that I can let all of that stand that I just did. But yeah, I think I'm going to try to break the rule again. I'm going to actually mix a darker red yet. So breaking the rule twice. Does that make sense to you? I'm going in reverse. I should have done this color first, then lighter, then lightest. Sometimes, and again, I won't know if I can get away with it until after I've done right here, and then I'll stand back and look at it. And your eye will tell you if it looks good. If it doesn't look good, I'm just giving you one of the reasons why it doesn't look good. I'm giving verbiage to your intuition. Like something doesn't look right. It's usually the way we feel about the mistakes that are in our paintings. It's like something doesn't look right, and I don't know what it is. So, of course, much of my mumbling and talking and teaching as I paint is, in fact, trying to help you and me put into consciousness. Okay, I know what I'm going to do here. It is bothering me that I have dark paint done second on top of the lighter stuff. Woe is me. How am I going to fix it? The answer is no problem. Hang on. That is, I'm mixing up that light peach, pale pink red color, mixing up that batch again, trying to match it. And once you don't, right as I'm saying that, on my palette, I ran out of titanium white. So, reminds me of an experience I had last weekend teaching. Teaching, of course, puts me right back in touch with painters and what they struggle with. Here's my palette. I just put out those 3 piles, but that's because I just finished using up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 piles of titanium white. And I would have taken more and put more out, but I don't have room right now. So if you want to paint, you have to put paint on your palette. I actually heard some other good teachers say this. I shouldn't say some other good teacher. I heard a good teacher say this some years ago, and it really has stuck with me. You can't both save paint and paint at the same time. So while you are painting, if you are deathly afraid of wasting paint, you'll never be a good painter, because you can't both paint and conserve paint at the same time. And the way that is usually manifested is students put out tiny little bits of paint. First of all, as soon as I'm done painting, this is oil paint. As soon as I'm done painting today, this goes in the freezer right over there, and it'll be perfectly fine for a week or more without any trouble at all. Anyway, so now that I've done all that, it's doggone it, it's just a little too busy. So let's see. I need to get away from that for a while. I'm going to leave it and decide where else to go. I just need to give that a rest. My nose has been right up in it for way too many minutes. Hey, while I'm at it though, I bet a secondary reflection of red maybe on the side of this woman's face might be nice. All right, what time is it? Yes, just about time for supper. I'm happy with several things that I did today. I didn't make as much progress on my punch list, if you will, as I would have liked, but I accomplished several things. Let me at least tackle this one-way sign before we go. Look at the photograph again. Okay, I'm within shouting distance. The first thing I'm going to do is try to mix up an opaque version of this color. Whatever color that is, I don't know what to call it. But I'm going to try to mix up an opaque version. And of course, the word opaque, that means I'm painting lighter. I don't have to tell you that. The terms are virtually synonymous. They're not really synonymous, but you know, if the artist says opaque, they mean lighter, and if they say lighter, they mean opaque. Now, not ignorant painters don't know that. Okay, don't take that to your art professor and say, he or she may look at you like you're stupid, and if so, you're talking to a stupid professor, sorry. But anyway, never mind. That was terrible. Avoid that. Erase the tape there. Anyway, this works for those of us who understand the magic of transparent painting. And if you're talking to someone who does not paint in the magic of by the magic of transparency, in other words, the way Rembrandt, Frans Hals, Albert Bierstadt, blah, 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 every great painter, Bouguereau, every great painter essentially before 1890, every great painter essentially painted by the magic, primarily by the magic of transparency. Okay, but many artists in the 20th century were distracted temporarily by the canvas is flat mantra. Now, that was actually Greenberg, what's his name? The biggest old dead critic of the 20th, art critic of the 20th century, Greenberg. Forgetting his first name. Got his book on my shelf in there. His big thing, canvas is flat, the canvas is flat. In my century, now much of what we commonly call modern art, I'm not speaking like, I'm not separating contemporary art and modern art here, I'm just calling it what a man on the street calls it all modern art. One of the great good lessons of the modern art era was the canvas is flat. And I'll explain a little bit, what does that mean? Of course the canvas is flat, that's so stupid, why do you even have to say it? Well, I'll explain in a minute. But much of the 20th century art movement was in fact an adolescent, a collective consciousness, if you will, adolescent outburst, reaction to some of what came before. In fact, I will go so far as to say, I do say in one of my other books that I've been writing for years, and I hope will be published about modern art, is that the entire 20th century of art, it can be described and understood as adolescence. And what's the word? Adolescence and all the excesses that accompany all adolescence. Now, hi Harold. Got that comment. Good for you, man. Good for you. Keep going. Keep going. Okay, so the entire 20th century experiment, if you will, in modern art was a adolescent temper tantrum. But adolescence is an important transition. As difficult or painful as adolescence may be, it beats the heck out of childhood. Are you with me? So I'm giving grace here to the excesses and those who committed and did the excesses of the modern art era, of which there are still many doing it. And I do consider it excesses. But some of it was important. We needed adolescence to bust out of some of what came before. Not the least of which was before the 18th century, 19th century, I mean before the 1800s, 19th century, for millennia, artists had been the cameras of the human race, right? An artist was a camera. That was one of his main, probably his or her main function, besides, I guess you could say, just decoration. The artist's main function, role, was to record visually things. And then suddenly, the camera came along. A little box or big box originally that does in a fraction of the time and infinitely better than any artist ever could record, displaces all the artists of the human race. So that's not the whole story by any means, but that's part of it. That's part of the explosion of adolescence that is modern art. So the canvas is flat was the lesson. What, if I may paraphrase them, what that really meant was we're not painting photographs. Or, and again, this is Greenberg's, I can't believe I can't remember his first name. That's crazy. One of you will put it in the chat. What Greenberg was saying is he was railing against the notion that artists should continue to be cameras. He said, no, 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 we have cameras that do that now. Artists are not cameras anymore. True. And one of the great, so what did they mean by the canvas is flat? Another way to put it is that they were railing against, rightly so, the notion, and this is a good painting for me to stand in front of, they were against the notion, as I am as well, that this is a magic window. And through this magic window, I am gazing upon an alternate reality. Are you with me? The alternate reality is a street corner in Flagstaff, Arizona, with people and signs and street lights and cars and signs and sky and a tree and windows and signs and buildings and a guy sitting on a bench and crosswalk. What they were against is like, no, it's not a magic window. You're not gazing through this into as if you're reaching into a three-dimensional space. So in order to beat that into the minds of modern humanity, they had to say, no, the canvas, it's flat. You're not looking through it. It's flat. And what you're looking at is paint on the canvas. So that notion, paint on canvas, gave rise. I won't even start the list. I'll get in trouble by leaving some big ones out. Okay? Now, here's the funny part. That same mentality is exactly what I preach vociferously to my students. If you want to be, in my opinion, to create beautiful paintings, see, now they were not into beauty at all. And that's another story and another issue and another problem completely. Most of them were not. I still believe believe in beauty, which I cannot tell you how far outside the art establishment that pushes me. Just that statement, if I say I believe in beauty, because they're at war with beauty. You know that when you go to the contemporary art museums and go, these people, that work is ugly. Intentionally so. Anyway, I say that the first half of most artists' journey, at least this is a really good journey. First half, you learn how to paint stuff that looks like stuff, or draw stuff. Draw a painting, two sides of the same coin. First half of your journey, you learn how to paint stuff that looks like stuff. Second half of your journey, you learn that the canvas is flat, and you're not painting pictures primarily at all. You're painting paintings. And that does, in fact, describe, I hope, my way of painting. Because even though, yes, obviously, you can see this is a car with a wheel on the back and a luggage rack and taillights on, you can identify all the things in this painting. Yet when you come in close to any part of it, you begin to realize, oh my goodness, it looked realistic from back there, but when I get up close, it's a mess. It's just marks and strokes and blobs. And I go, thank you very much, this best compliment you could pay me. Because this is not a magic window. Now, and it's David LaFell, famous, big dog artist that I follow sometimes on YouTube, came up with the term abstract realism. I grabbed it and said, perfect, I'll take it. That's what my paintings are. What that means is, and I hope that this is clear. Now, it won't be, I don't expect non-artists to verbalize this. They don't have to verbalize it, but they'll be experiencing it intuitively without putting it into language. That my paintings are abstract realism. First of all, the realism is obvious. That's what I'm talking about. You can see there's a man crossing the street. In fact, he might be a mailman. He's holding like a letter in his hand. It's so realistic, you can see everything. Here's a woman with a clipboard in her hand. Realism. That's the easy part. The hard part is the abstract. And what you're also seeing is like, okay, whoever painted this, they're not into hyperrealism or photorealism or real realism. They're doing something else. Now, a lot of non-artists, here's the pain. A lot of non-artists, they think that I paint this way because I'm unable to paint realism. You and I both know, woohoo, that is so not true. No. I paint this way because I've discovered that what makes a painting beautiful is in fact not the picture. And I mispronounced the word on purpose. It's not the fact that you can identify this as a no parking sign. I'm not picking this because it's ugly, no, but just because it's one of the many things that's identifiable as a no parking sign. What makes my painting beautiful is not the fact that you can identify it as a no parking sign. What makes it beautiful are the line, shape, value, design, and texture of every part of my painting. It's not the parts of this that look realistic is not what wins me visual points or creates an aesthetic buzz in your brain. It's not the realism that creates the buzz. It is, in fact, the abstract, the non-realism that creates a buzz in your brain. It's the fascinating interplay. Like I already mentioned, the fact that it fades from light to dark. Now, again, I do not expect non-artists to walk up to my painting and say, huh, would you look at that? It fades from light to dark. No, no, no. Everything I'm talking about is almost completely invisible to non-artists, okay? We're not hoping that a non-artist will walk up and understand this. No, no, no. But they get it with their gut. They experience it without conscious awareness. The job for us artists is to bring all of these gut level intuitive experiences up into conscious level so that we can do them on purpose. What makes this part of the painting beautiful is not the fact that it's a realistic no parking sign. It's not a realistic no. What makes it beautiful is line, shape, value, design, texture, color, line, hard and soft line, messes. It's the messes that make it beautiful. All right. And that's what we had to learn in the 20th century, is that this is not a picture. This is a painting. So that's what they meant by learning the canvas is flat. And while we were learning that as a human race, as Western civilization, while we were in the process of learning that this is not a picture, it's a painting, we had to go through the canvas is flat, and that's what gave rise to the tendency that most of my peers still adhere to of painting in flat, straight out of the tube colors. Nothing, you know, some people can paint fantastic that way, but they would paint more fantastic if they went back and picked up the magic of transparency, okay? End of tirade. I'm going to take a break. Let me see what kind of comments you guys are making here. I see a number of comments, and I've completely not ignored all of them. There's a lot of funny comments. You guys talking to each other. I like it. I'm going back quite a ways here. Half of you guys are probably all gone, but Susan, thank you, says, thank you for all your lessons with explanations. Matt says, sound is good. Glad to hear it. And David says, the canvas that we see beside it, there's something poking at the back of it. Oh, thank you. You're right. Thank you, David. Woo! I'll fix that as soon as I finish here. It's an ungessoed canvas, so that'll make it easier to get that bump out. Thank you, David. That's what friends are for. You guys. That's hilarious. Harold says, the light on the sign is confusing. Oh, okay. You agreed with me, Harold, I think, right? Now, is it okay now? I'm assuming that was back when it was confusing. Yeah, thanks. So I hope we agree with that now. I imagine the light on the sign is from the other side of the street. Could be, very much. We Californians get that it's a joke. Good, glad to hear it. And Harold agrees, it looks like the painting is glowing. Thank you very much. And then I jumped in. I saw Matt's art stuff. Should the people have a shadow? And that led into a whole bunch of painting down here, which significantly helped the bottom of the painting, Matt. Appreciate that very much. And yes, my wife called me. Thank you, David. I forgot about my wife. Yeah, no, I didn't. But she was calling to say she was on her way home. I'm glad I didn't interrupt to call her back. She popped her head in, as you saw later. The walk line looks like they're sticking out of the road. They are. Now, they might be, David, you said it looks like they in fact are quite much in the photograph. It's like raised concrete, the crosswalk paint. Now, this one right here, I think might be a little bit much. Thank you for that. But generally, they're all right. They are, in fact, sticking out of the street. Yeah, unusual the way. So, but just because it's real doesn't mean I have to keep it that way. So your comment is well taken. I should probably diminish it a little bit. Just because it's real doesn't mean I should leave it that way if it looks awkward. I will give that serious consideration, David. Thank you. Hey, that's Elvis at the crosswalk. I love it, you guys. Oh my goodness. um, all right, come on, get going the right way. um, no, I lost it. My screen turned sideways at the Elvis comment. uh, David says, "You're glad I saw the small heads. You didn't want to say anything." Thank you, because he said something yesterday about the big head. Oh my goodness. Yes, Matt, you did stir up a hornet's nest. Oh, that's for sure. My goodness. Her handbag could use a fleck of light. Oh, this thing up here, I think it looks more like a clipboard, but I will give that some serious thought. That's a very good possibility. And the one-way signs, outer corner, are a bit rounded. Oh, okay, and actually I fixed that. This one anyway. Yeah, thank you. And good, I got that I didn't see that comment, but I saw it and fixed it myself. Clement Greenberg. Thank you. I knew one of you would get it. Way to go, Raymond. Clement Greenberg. That's right. That's David, I'm so humble. I am, David. I'm glad you recognize that fact. Fully lectured again. Thank you. You're welcome, Susan. And Bill Vapes, great tirade and great changes made. Thanks for the ride along. You're very welcome, you guys. All right, that was great fun. I appreciate it so much. Once again, part of the reason that I do these broadcasts, as you can probably tell, they bring me life. I mean, I'm a very happy person, but I'm happy painting, but I'm even happier painting when I've got a camera on me. Isn't that funny? And part of the reason is, I probably have a terrible hat here now, part of the reason is that the teacher learns more than the students. That's an old expression. And when I'm describing to you principles of painting, that means I'm keeping them conscious, forefront of my mind, and rehearsing them. So anyway, I actually get myself. I think I paint a little bit better when I'm talking to you guys. You can call it quits. When I come back, I want to warm this up with some transparent glazes a little bit, and then pretty much I'm going up to the rest of the painting, which doesn't need a ton of work. Of course, most of the energy is down here. But that'll do. Thanks, guys. Been a long broadcast. Appreciate your watching.